Welcome aboard Delta Airlines. Please enjoy your flight and thanks for choosing Delta.
Jody Avirgan here. Thanks for listening to ESPN Film's 30 for 30 podcast from the producers of the award-winning 30 for 30 series. These new audio documentaries are an incredible collection of sports stories you need to hear to believe. It's really a win-win. Delta Airlines makes your travel experience easy and enjoyable with real-time bag tracking, e-boarding, and passport scanning during check-in. And ESPN's 30 for 30 podcasts make your in-flight time rich with stories that will keep you coming back for more. So sit back, relax, and keep listening to some of the most compelling sports stories ever told.
This is the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
I'm Stephen A.
Well, it is the Stephen A. Smith Show. Dave Rothenberg sitting in next couple of hours. Obviously, the big news of the day, and this is surrounding all sports circles, is what the Knicks have done. And you wake up this morning and you realize that the Knicks have moved on from Phil Jackson, and your immediate reaction, I think, is to be very excited. And then the more you think about it, the more you say, yeah, look, I'm excited about it, but what does this actually mean? And we brought him back from vacation a little bit early to have the conversation with us on his own show. And that, of course, is Stephen A. What's up, buddy?
What's going on, man? How you doing? Appreciate you as always, Dave. What's going on?
Anytime. All right, let's dive right into it. The story that the reason you came back from vacation a little bit early is Stephen A. and is Phil Jackson. And what's your take on this? I mean, are you surprised that they do it now and not a week or two or more so that the new regime could have handled this draft?
Well, I'm definitely a little surprised, but I'm more disappointed than surprised because they waited so long. If he's not going to be here, why let him draft somebody? These are the kind of things that gets James Dolan in trouble. I'm an individual that consistently points to James Dolan and says he's willing to pay the dollars to cut the check, and that's really all you can ask for. Cut the check and move out the way. But when you make a move with this timing, that's where the disappointment comes in, because why let Phil Jackson draft this dude if you're going to get rid of him? Now, obviously, he and Dolan were bickering over the issue involving Carmelo Anthony because Phil Jackson wants to waive him, buy him out. Dolan doesn't want to lose him for minimal value. That's really what that comes down to. According to my sources, Dave, Melo wants to be bought out because Melo wants to join Houston with CP3 and James Harden. So if he's bought out, that's where he'll probably go. If he's not bought out, then the likelihood of a trade seems to be a 50-50 proposition. Either way you slice it, Phil Jackson, James Dolan were not on the same page with that. They certainly were not on the same page with Phil alienating Porzingis to some degree, and as a result, Phil is gone because of it. So
do you believe that Melo, in one capacity, either bought out and or dealt, is not here when we start this coming season?
I think it's a possibility. If they're willing to buy him out, Melo will leave in a heartbeat and go to Houston. If they're not willing to buy him out, then what do you trade him for? The only viable trade seems to be a multi-team deal where he'll end up in Cleveland. But in order for that to happen, somebody has to be willing to take Kevin Love's contract. From what my sources tell me, that would involve Phoenix. Phoenix would be willing to give up Eric Bledsoe as well. So who knows what's going to happen.
All right. Hornacek Mills, is this going to be the duo that runs the Knicks for the foreseeable future?
From what I'm told, not if James Dolan has anything to say about it. If James Dolan has anything to say about it, he'll want to go the route of Masai Ujiri for Toronto. But he just signed a multi-year extension a few months ago, and because of that reality, the chances of them getting him are slim. I'm not going to say none because this is the world of business and you never know, but it is slim. In the event that doesn't happen, then he'll probably keep Steve Mills on board, who he never wanted to let go of to begin with. Remember, he was formerly the president of Madison Square Garden and the GM, hovering over basketball, or actually the president of basketball operations as well. James Dolan never wanted to lose him. He's very fond of Steve Mills, so he may give Steve Mills the chance because Steve Mills does have inroads with a lot of the agents that you have to do business with, and a lot of them speak very highly of him. They call him honest. They say he's straightforward and very open about what the situation is, and he works with them to try and make moves. The players themselves, however, not all of them are too keen on Steve Mills, mainly Carmelo and Porzingis. Their people are not particularly fond of Steve Mills, so it remains to be seen what's going to happen with that.
Are the Knicks in a better position all around as an organization, free agency, moving forward today than they were yesterday in your mind?
I think so, simply because you have an executive, whoever it's going to be, that's going to actually be doing the work. That's better than somebody who's not doing the work, who believes and who was led to believe that his primary responsibility was to provide cover for the billionaire owner who really didn't want any responsibilities with basketball whatsoever. That's what you were dealing with when Phil Jackson was here. He knew that winning wasn't a priority. It wasn't necessary. All that was needed was to keep cover for James Dolan. And once the Porzingis thing went down, there was no longer any cover for James Dolan. And James Dolan was like, well, if there's no cover for me, why should I keep you here?
It sounds, and speaking to you earlier today, like Phil Jackson really had no desire to be here and didn't care about...
He never was.
So he was here for the money? Is that it?
That is correct. He definitely cares about the New York Knicks organization. He won a title with them in '73, but he didn't want to be here doing the work. You know, he wanted to be a consultant, but Dolan insisted upon him being president of basketball operations because that's the only way he could provide cover. You're not going to provide cover for Dolan by being a consultant, but you would provide cover by being a president of basketball operations with all basketball decisions being deferred to you, because that way we would sit there and question Phil instead of Dolan, which is exactly what Dolan wanted all along.
Do they have to make a quick decision on Melo so they can get other things in order moving towards this coming season?
Personally, I believe they do, but I personally believe the biggest thing they need to do is get rid of Hornacek. He was never the guy for this job as far as I'm concerned. Not to knock him as a coach because he's not a bad coach, but you need a difference maker, and you need somebody that New York fans can gravitate to that can be the face of the organization, as opposed to Carmelo Anthony being the spokesperson for the organization to explain the alarming level of ineptitude that's been going on with this franchise for so many years. You don't need Melo to be that guy. You need somebody else to be that guy, preferably your coach, which is why I'm a proponent of Mark Jackson being a new coach for the New York Knicks.
You think we have a new coach opening night for the Knicks?
I think it's possible. I can't say definitively because nobody knows what Dolan is thinking right now, but I would venture to guess if I had to bet my money on it, I would say yes.
All right, Stephen A. hanging out with us on his show because obviously the news of the day is Phil Jackson and the Knicks parting ways, ESPN Radio, ESPN app. Is there a plan in place? Do you think that Dolan or Mills, like they have gotten together and they say, this is what we want to accomplish over the next 3 months, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years? Or is it just so fresh that they have to kind of now figure out where they want to go?
Of course, the latter applies because to say the word plan and James Dolan in the same sentence is damn near an oxymoron when it comes to basketball. Hockey, not so much. Business, definitely not. But when it comes to basketball, he has given us no reason whatsoever to trust that he has a plan in place. It seems his primary focus is to make sure that he's not the one in the eye of the storm in the event that things go awry. Take, for example, what transpired on draft night. Draft night, Phil Jackson is passing on Malik Monk. He's passing on Dennis Smith Jr. out of North Carolina State, even though there was some baggage in Dennis Smith's background that needed to be addressed. And he picks this dude from France. And Dolan is someplace downtown playing his guitar with his band. When asked about Phil Jackson, he said, and basketball stuff, he said, ask Phil Jackson, ask Phil. That's what his position has been. That's what his position continues to be. That's where your problem lies.
So
James Dolan wants the focus to be elsewhere and not on himself.
This thing broke apart over Melo in your mind?
Melo and Porzingis. Melo because of the manner in which Melo was treated, and then ultimately wanting to buy him out. And then with Porzingis through his agent showing a willingness to make noise to make Phil uncomfortable. I was told at the time that Phil was entertaining phone calls Phil did not want to trade. I got it on very reliable sources. Phil never had any intentions of trading Porzingis. He didn't want to trade him. He just wanted to test his value because he was ticked off at Porzingis for calling him out, not showing up to the exit interview, not returning his phone calls. But what I was told more importantly than anything else is that Porzingis doesn't want to leave New York. He wanted Phil to leave. That was their objective. That was their agenda. And that was the message that they got across to James Dolan. And obviously James Dolan heard them loud and clear. So in the end, what it comes down to is that Porzingis actually has more to do with Phil Jackson being gone than Melo. Because if Melo had more to do with it, Phil Jackson would have been gone months ago before Dolan exercised the option and picked up the 2 years on his contract. He didn't do it then because Melo evidently wasn't as important enough, but Porzingis is. And Porzingis, 21 years of age and all, ended up speaking out and speaking volumes in terms of dictating the demise of Phil Jackson in New York.
Yeah, they chose him over Phil Jackson. Certainly, I think that probably long-term is the right choice. All right, before we let you run and get back to some vacation, Chris Paul to the Rockets. I mean, for Beverly, Lou Williams, a first-round pick, and Decker. I mean, this feels like Houston certainly gets the better end of this deal.
Well, they get the better end of the deal, but you have to look at the Clippers' position. First of all, you bring in Jerry West, which, as far as I'm concerned, is an indictment against Doc Rivers to some degree. We all know Doc Rivers to be a great coach. We have questions about him as an executive. So for the billionaire Steve Ballmer to bring in Jerry West, that was definitely an indictment against the job that Doc Rivers has done in terms of orchestrating the team as an executive, although he remains president of basketball operations. That's number one. Number two, his relationship with Chris Paul wasn't the greatest in the world. There's no hatred or anything going on like that. But it wasn't like they were bosom buddies and they loved one another the way people thought that they did. Because sometimes Chris Paul didn't have the greatest relationship with Blake Griffin and vice versa. I personally consider Blake Griffin to be the big problem in Los Angeles, not Chris Paul. But Chris Paul was the dude in free agency that was looking for a $200 million payday if he was going to stay in L.A. But Chris Paul is not Carmelo Anthony. By that I mean he's not always mellow, no matter the circumstances. Chris Paul is a pit bull. Chris Paul is a fire breather. When he loses, he's not pleasant to talk to. He's not pleasant to be around. He doesn't like people, what have you, because he hates losing that much. And it really grates him that he's never been in a conference finals, let alone an NBA finals. It's something that he takes very, very personal, that he doesn't want attached to his resume and his legacy as an NBA player. And he was hell-bent on doing something about it, which is why he let them know beforehand that he had every intention of signing with Houston as a free agent if they did not facilitate a trade. So knowing that's what they had to work against, you got a guy in Patrick Beverly who's a rough rider defensively, a guy in Louis Williams who can score offensively, and a guy in Sam Decker who's considered a viable asset. Do they measure up to Chris Paul? No. But what they do give the Clippers is added depth, which the Clippers obviously didn't have. So if you keep Blake Griffin and DeAndre Jordan in tow, okay, or even if you make a move to move Blake Griffin for somebody else, you still have DeAndre Jordan and some other parts around you where you could be relatively respectable with a bunch of tradable contracts potentially to make your team better, rather than losing Chris Paul for nothing or having to pay him $200 million plus. They didn't want either scenario. And when Chris Paul made it clear to them that he had every intention of signing with Houston as a free agent if they did not make a trade happen, they were left with no choice but to make a deal.
All right, Stephen A., it's great to talk to you, break down some of this Knicks drama, melodrama, I guess you could say. And I'll talk to you soon, pal.
Thanks a lot, buddy. Take it easy.
You're listening to the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
You woke up this morning and you found out that the Knicks were moving in a very different direction. How different will it be? I mean, that remains to be seen. Step one, remove Phil Jackson. I think most people, I can't imagine that there's anybody that woke up today and said, oh, no Phil Jackson. How will we move forward? This is good news. My issue is, now what do you do? Do you want Steve Mills and Jeff Hornacek to be the guys in place to deal with this? Now, we just talked to Stephen A., and he said he doesn't think Hornacek's going to be here long. He wouldn't be surprised if there's a new coach soon. There's rumblings, and Adrian Wojnarowski had this morning, Knicks owner James Dolan targeting Toronto's Masai Ujiri to replace Phil Jackson as Knicks president, league sources tell him. I'm all in on that. That's what I need. And I know he just re-upped and signed a big deal. I'm calling them, and I'm figuring out a way. What do you want for him? Because if you don't have a smart decision maker in place, you've got nothing. Then what has to happen is you've got to have twofold. Get that guy, be it David Griffin, be it Ujiri. Ujiri's the guy for me, but whoever it happens to be. And you've got to have the owner say, like he did with Phil, or at least told us he did with Phil, this is all you. This is all you. Ujiri, it's your team. Run with it. That's it. So that to me is what I would try to do. Because if you don't have the right guy in place making decisions, you've got nothing. And you heard from Stephen A. with him saying that Porzingis and Melo, they don't love Steve Mills. You know, NBA now is as much about recruiting guys and being a popular pick as anything. There are like how many destinations where guys want to go? Houston obviously is one. Cleveland, Golden State, San Antonio, Boston, maybe Washington or Philly now. Everybody else, nobody wants to go to those teams. You know, Jimmy Butler's already said he didn't know if he's going to wind up in Minnesota for more than 2 years. And I think Minnesota, if they do well, could be another one of those clubs because they have young, dynamic talent. Well, how do you become one of those clubs? You get young talent, you draft well, and all of a sudden you have a good infrastructure and you become attractive around the league. And let's be honest, guys, the Knicks have not been attractive around this league in a very long time. Kevin in Connecticut. Kevin, you're on ESPN Radio.
How you doing, Dave?
Yes, Kevin.
I talked to you a couple of days ago. I wanted to call about Phil Jackson, and I said about the curse and how he hasn't done anything, and you said, well, the Knicks haven't been relevant for over 20 years. But I'm just overjoyed that I don't know if the karma was in the air, but now it's over.
It's over? But, you know, what's interesting to me is that you're overjoyed by this. There's a lot more work to be done, Kevin, than just removing Phil Jackson from his post.
Of course. But like I always say, New York is a mecca of basketball. Every team, when they come in the Garden, whether the Knicks are a top team or a regular team, they come in the Garden, everybody wants to play better because they're in the mecca, the Garden, New York City. You know, now we can get things to return to where the level it should be for the Knicks. I mean, I don't know how long it's going to take, but at least I feel like it's a better start, you know, to make things back as it should be.
I think it's a step in the right direction, but Kevin, and thanks for the phone call, I think there are a lot of steps to be taken. I mean, let's be honest. This guy never deserved this job. The only reason that Phil Jackson was ever employed by the Knicks is because it was twofold. Remember, James Dolan was starting to get a lot of heat, a ton of heat around the Knicks. There was going to be a demonstration, and he's always wanted Phil, and he threw so much money at him that Phil really had no choice but to take the job. But we've heard from everyone. I mean, falling asleep watching guys work out. Some of the moves he made. I mean, Joakim Noah. You're 1 year in. The guy's owed $54 million. He's irrelevant already. This is a big, tough, difficult job with a lot of moving parts. 866-ESPN, 866-729-3776. Real quick, Joe in Hicksville. You're on ESPN Radio.
Hey, Dave, thank you for having me. Tell Aunt Judy I said hello. Miss her. She was a great customer.
I will be sure to pass that along to Aunt Judy. Go ahead, Joe.
I appreciate it. Got two comments, two statements I really want to make. I completely agree with you with the whole transition. Phil Jackson gone, great, step in the right direction, but where does it lead us, really? We really don't know. We're just going to have to wait and see. The Frank Ntilikina pick, not necessarily mad at it. I know a lot of people are, a little frustrated because he was picked essentially to be the triangle guy, to come in. But I don't really think that pick was based on the triangle. I think it just was what he brings, what he has, really young, moldable. He hasn't really been grown up with that ISO kind of hero ball. He has more of a team-oriented kind of game, which I think is great, especially the fact, like I said again, he's young. So he has a lot.
They're all young. You say he's young. Dennis Smith is 19. Malik Monk is 19. They're all young. So 18, 19 makes no difference, Joe, and appreciate the phone call. But, look, can Ntilikina prove to be a good player? I think that there's a very good chance of that. Would I have preferred Malik Monk and or Dennis Smith? For me personally, yeah, I would have. What boggles my mind is that, we talk about Phil with this exit interview, and there's no exit interview, and how did they not have that, and what was the problem there? Dolan didn't sit down with Jackson at the end of the season and say, what's your plan now? We waited until the draft was over to decide, hey, we might want to think about moving on from Phil. The whole thing feels very, very awkward and strange, doesn't it? But I guess that's what the Knicks are. It's awkward, it's strange, and I think that most of us as Knicks fans do not think it turns around until you actually see it turn around.
Guess what?
You're in the middle of the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
Damn it, I mean it!
It's funny. I went to bed last night after the Yankees imploded in the 8th and the 9th, thinking, boy, today's going to be a big day to beat up on the Yankees. I'm lying in bed this morning. At 5:10, I get a text from a buddy of mine. Says Jackson is done. I don't know if there's any time limiting where you're allowed to text or not, but I think 5:10 is fairly early. But I get that text. I turn over to my wife. I say, it's over. Phil's done. And she looks at me like I kind of am, but she looks at me like I'm more of an idiot than usual. She's like, it's 5 o'clock in the morning. Who cares? I care. We care. People are lined up to discuss this right now, right? But it's funny how quickly in the world of sports things change. This is the furthest thing from our minds was going to happen. I've had people calling me for weeks saying, it's time for it to happen. I said, yeah, but the owner just came out and said no. The owner just came out and said, Phil's my guy a week ago. Are you involved in the draft? What do you do? No, that is Phil and Phil alone. It's obvious what happened. There is a power struggle when you come to the big-time players. Not even Melo, Porzingis. They're scared to death that he's unhappy already 2 years into his NBA career. 866-ESPN, 866-729-3776. Let's go to James in Jersey. James, you're on ESPN Radio.
Hello?
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 Hey, thanks, Dave, for taking my call.
You got it, James. Go ahead.
The reason I want to say is please don't let Carmelo Anthony go. And this is my point I want to make. When Shaquille O'Neal was in the league, you had to have a 7-footer. And even if the guy was slow, you needed a guy 7 feet, 280 pounds, or you didn't stand a chance against him. Now, there's only a handful of teams in the league that can challenge, not be better than, but challenge Kevin Durant and challenge LeBron James on your team. The minute you let that guy go, you're telling your team, I don't want to compete for a championship. This guy, you have to keep him.
James, you make it sound like they're on the verge of competing for a championship. James, they're not on the verge of competing for a playoff spot with Carmelo Anthony.
But once you let that guy go, you don't even stand a chance. I mean,
they don't stand a chance now. If they keep Melo and try to build around him, do they stand a chance to win?
Right now, if you mortgage right now, you're in if you mortgage a future draft picks and get rid of Joakim Noah's contract, you find a way to get rid of that contract. That's the Achilles heel, not Carmelo Anthony.
James, how long have you been a Knicks fan for? How long have you been a Knicks fan for?
10, 12 years.
Okay.
Yeah, about 10,
you want
years,
to you want to mortgage future draft picks. See Nets of this year and last year and next year. See Knicks of the last 15 years under Isaiah Thomas. Trading away first-round picks. You want to trade away? I mean, are you kidding me? The one thing now, and James, I got to run it. Thanks for the call. The one thing now that you actually have hope in is that you have all your picks moving forward. The last thing I am doing is trading first-round picks. This team's going to be lousy this coming year. Who's my point guard? Oh, they may bring back Derrick Rose. What a treat that would be. So I got Neely Keena and an unknown starter. I got Courtney Lee. I got Porzingis. I might have Anthony and Joakim Noah with Billy Hernangomez. So I have a similar team to what I had last year, which is horrendous. What am I going to be moving forward? I'm not going to be a good basketball team. Now I'm going to mortgage the future to try and change things? It's not going to work. They've tried this. I can be patient as a Knicks fan. The thing that drives me crazy is I'm being patient, and I still have no idea if they're heading in the right direction. None. And neither does nobody knows. At least I look at the Jets, and I'm not saying it's going to work, but at least the Jets have a plan in place. What's the next plan? What are they doing? Who are they doing it with? All these questions, there are no answers with this club. Lewis in Valley Stream is on ESPN Radio. What's up, Lewis?
Hey, what's going on, man?
Go ahead. What's on your mind today, Lewis?
Good. Listen, I agree, with you guys. They have to clean house and start, fresh. Let's say they get, they do get Mark Jackson as the coach or Van Gundy, and they get the guy from Toronto. But what if the Knicks do surprise us by making those changes, and they do make a run at the playoffs? The only thing that we could be is just hopeful, because we were hopeful that they will get rid of Phil Jackson, and they did. So the only thing that Knicks fans have is, let's be hopeful.
You know what? I guess you're an optimistic guy. I guess you drive around New York City at 5:30 and you say, I don't think we're going to have bad traffic today. Like, I have no optimism. How can you, and God bless you, Lewis, how can you be a fan of this team and have real hope that things are going to turn around, they're going to do the right thing?
Because, let's say, for instance, if Malik Monk, right? And Dennis don't, grow up to be the players that everybody thinks they're going to be. And let's say Ntilikina does. I mean, it's both sides. Ntilikina could be really bad, and Malik Monk could be great. But at the same time, Malik Monk could be terrible in his season, and Ntilikina might be great. So, I mean, you got to look at both sides.
But here's the thing, Lewis, and I got to run. It never works out. We went through it yesterday on this show. We went through the last 17 years of the Knicks seasons. Do you understand how many postseason series wins they've had in 17 years? One. I was talking to DiPietro before. That's the Cleveland Browns of the NBA. One round victorious in 17 years? You've got to. It is imperative to put the right pieces in place to make the decisions. This GM decision, this coach decision matter more than anything, and that's all that matters. Because you put the right GM in place, you say it is all you. The owner's not going to butt in. You're going to pick your coach. You're going to make your decisions. You're going to make your deals. You're going to have, agents who are friends. You're going to make New York a place that people want to go to again. Because, guys, it has not been like that in a long time. And now I think there's a realistic chance that Carmelo Anthony's going to be a member of this team. And I get it that Phil Jackson gets the brunt of the blame and should get the brunt of the blame. But let's be honest, okay? Carmelo Anthony has not done himself any favors with the way that he has not succeeded here in New York. Will in North Bergen. Will, you're on the Stephen A. Smith Show with Rothenberg sitting in. What's up, Will?
Hey, what's going on, man? Long time Knicks fan. I just want to ask two things in your opinion. One is I'm hearing about the Toronto GM that they're trying to go after him, but now they're saying that it's not going to just be money that's involved. They might need some draft picks for him.
I would do it, though.
Why not?
I would do it.
Why not go for just David Griffin? Don't you think they could get him?
Of course you could get him. He's not a GM in the league right now, and he's a guy that's had success. My question about David Griffin is how much of his success has been linked to LeBron James?
Right.
Like Ujiri is a very well-respected, very smart GM, as evidenced by the way he fleeced the Knicks in a couple of those deals.
Right. And my second point is, my second question is, what do you think about this kid, Frank, the French kid? Because from what I'm hearing, he wasn't even a starter on his French team.
He's a nice player. Look, the thing that frustrates me about everyone want to talk about him, Will, and thanks for the call, is nobody knows anything about the guy. Well, he's a nice player. He's a long player. He's a good defensive player. He's got big upside. He plays in the Pro League. He was just in the championship series against men, and he handles himself well. So do I think you're going to see him come in and give you 15 and 8 and 6 in year one? No. Do I think in 3 or 4 years we could look at him and say he's a legitimate point guard? I do. Would I have taken Dennis Smith over him? Yes. Would I have taken Malik Monk over him? Yes. See, now, I don't know if you guys feel like this. Now what my life has become is I've got to root for the Knicks. I've got to root that Neely Keena is a nice player. And on the flip side, I've got to root against Malik Monk, and I've got to root against Dennis Smith Jr. because I'm going to have a Steph Curry on my hands if I don't do that. And that's the last thing that you want to have happen.
Daddy, where do babies come from?
Honey?
Mommy went to the store.
Oh, well, you see, there's a mommy and a daddy, right?
Right.
And see, when they call Geico, they could save a bunch of money on car insurance.
Oh, really? And that makes them happy?
Yes, that makes them very happy.
That's good.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad we could have this talk, Sunshine.
Geico, because saving 15% or more on car insurance is always a great answer.
Guess what?
You're in the middle of the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
Damn it, I mean it!
June 28th. The day you wake up and you find out that the Knicks and Phil Jackson have parted ways. And it's funny, I get a lot of tweets at Rothenberg, ESPN, saying, you wanted him. You were happy with him. Yep, they did. I thought that there was a chance he would make them relevant. I thought there was a chance that he would have respect from other GMs and players in the league. And, there's a story about Pat Riley where he was meeting with LeBron, and the closing deal was he took off the rings and put them on the table and said, you want these? Come with me. I thought Phil would do the same thing. See, Phil is like stuck in this antiquated system of how he thinks you can win in the NBA. Without Michael Jordan, without Scottie Pippen, without Shaquille O'Neal, without Lamar Odom, without Kobe Bryant, not that easy, is it? 866 ESPN. So I did. I bought into the Kool-Aid. You know what? What else were you going to do? This is the guy that they have pined after for 15 years. They finally got him. You thought maybe, and you're wrong. I'm not doing it again. I am not jumping back on this Knicks bandwagon until they start to win. I'm done. Masai Ujiri, great. I'd love him. Mark Jackson, Doc Rivers, coaches, phenomenal. When they are 30-10 or 25-12, or I have a team that I look at and I say, my God, look at that club. How good are they going to be? Then I'm in. I'm not saying I won't watch. I'm not saying I won't care. But I will not believe that this changes until I see it. There are certain teams. Patriots can do anything. You believe it's going to work. Locally, the Giants can do, I don't want to say anything, but lots of things. And you say, what's the Giants? We've seen it work. It's been successful. I'm buying in. And I'm not buying in anymore. Until they prove to me. Rangers, I'll buy in. Rangers don't win the Cup, but Rangers every year are relevant. Second round, conference finals, Stanley Cup finals. They've given me reason to believe that they are very functional. The Knicks have done the opposite. They've given me reason to believe that they're very dysfunctional. I'm not buying in. Not again. Not until they show me that they can. And the last time they showed me that they could, it fell apart very quickly, didn't it? Adam in Monroe. You're on ESPN Radio, Adam.
Hey, what's up, Dave? How you doing? Thanks
Good.
for taking my call.
You got it.
I just want to talk this. Knicks are irrelevant, so I want to go on to a team that actually kind of.
They're not irrelevant. They're relevant. They're just bad.
Yeah, I guess you could say that. But CP3 to the Rockets. All right. Everybody's saying it's going to be such a great backcourt and this and that. I personally don't like the move. If you think about it, Harden almost won MVP at the point guard position last year. That move, making him point guard, was brilliant. As well in that system when D'Antoni. Second of all, I get the whole he needs someone to take the ball out of his hands and he needs someone to relieve that pressure. As you can see, he got exhausted in that San Antonio series when they honed in on him, and he actually had a coach like Popovich who could put a scheme together to stop him. But I didn't like it as a point guard, having another ball handler.
But they're going to go up and down at a frenetic pace. They've got two guys that are unstoppable in the open court, and he makes other players better. Will there be a learning curve of how they have to figure out for those two guys to play together? Yes. But look at what they traded for him. Lou Williams, Sam Decker, Patrick Beverly, and a first-round pick, which will be irrelevant where they're picking in the first round. This is a brilliant trade for Houston.
I just think Harden bloomed this year. And he had the ball in his hand. He was the guy, and I think that's just going to take some away from him. Chris Paul doesn't play off the ball. I know he could shoot, but he's not a guy that's going to play off the ball. And when Harden's playing well, you're taking those 12 assists a game. He averaged 12 assists.
But here's the thing. D'Antoni, and thanks for the phone call, Adam, is a offensive. You could say you don't like him. He wasn't great here with the Knicks. He struggled with the Lakers. All those things are true. You can't argue with the fact that Mike D'Antoni is an offensive genius. And if there were a coach that were to put this thing together to make it work, I'll buy into D'Antoni. I think he will. These are good problems to have. We've got too many guys who are dynamic and elite with the basketball. I'll take that. I wish the Knicks had this problem. What do? We've got Harden, we've got Paul, we've got Anderson. We have so much talent. What do we do with all this talent and all these players? John in Jersey. You're on ESPN Radio, John.
Good afternoon, Dave. How are you, sir?
Good, John. Go ahead. You must be very happy today, John, I would imagine.
I'm happy, but like you said earlier, I want to see what's going to happen moving forward now. This Knicks franchise needs a complete and thorough cleansing inside and out. They really do. Mark Jackson, I got no problem with it. You want to bring Hubie Brown as a consultant to the organization? I got no problem with that as well. The guy in
Hubie
Toronto,
Brown he's like 84. I can't bring Hubie Brown in
as a consultant, Dave, not as the general manager. The concern I have for the general manager in Toronto is, other than fleecing the Knicks on two separate deals, what has he really done in the draft and in the trade market? This team is a rebuilding situation. I need a guy with more of a proven record of success.
So who do you want? Jerry? You're not going to get Jerry West. Who are you looking for, John?
Why not go to the Golden State Warriors, Dave? Why not get the assistant in Golden State that has been in that organization for an extended period of time and oversaw the drafting of Curry, of Thompson, of Draymond Green? And the two things the Knicks cannot do, and it'll be an utter disaster moving forward. Number one, under no circumstances could they bring back Derrick Rose.
I agree. I've said that. You don't have to sell me on it. John, I got to run. I agree. I'm not bringing back Derrick Rose. There's no way I would consider it. I hope to God they don't do it. If you're going to be bad, I don't have a problem being young, playing your youth, and being bad. I'm interested to see the direction this team goes in moving forward.
That's just a sample of what you'll hear on the Stephen A. Smith Show. Weekdays at 1 p.m. Eastern on Sirius XM Channel 80 and the ESPN app.
Welcome aboard Delta Airlines. Please enjoy your flight, and thanks for choosing Delta.
Jody Avirgan here. Thanks for listening to ESPN Films 30 for 30 podcasts from the producers of the award-winning 30 for 30 series. These new audio documentaries are an incredible collection of sports stories you need to hear to believe. It's really a win-win. Delta Airlines makes your travel experience easy and enjoyable with real-time bag tracking, e-boarding, and passport scanning during check-in. And ESPN's 30 for 30 podcasts make your in-flight time rich with stories that will keep you coming back for more. So sit back, relax, and keep listening to some of the most compelling sports stories ever told.
This is the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
I'm Stephen A. Well, Dave Rothenberg in for Stephen A. ESPN Radio, ESPN app, and I get it. People are, Masai Ujiri, if he doesn't fleece the Knicks a couple times, maybe he's not the GM that everyone thinks he is. I don't need Masai Ujiri. I don't. I'll take Mark Jackson. I'll take Doc Rivers. I just want a guy, and I want the owner to do what he just did with Phil. Leave that guy alone. Not meddle in everything that he wants to do. So if you tell me that you reached out, the guy that you should have gone after was Jerry West. Now, I know he's a West Coast guy, and it might not even work, but that's what I'd want. I don't want to make a play for the guy. But that, if you tell me that I'm going to bring in the assistant GM from the Warriors, I'm fine with that. Look what the Nets did. They bring in Sean Marks, and I do believe that this thing is going to wind up working and wind up changing. What you have to do, and the Nets were in a lot worse position than the Knicks. At least the Knicks have their picks. At least if you're the Knicks and you win 24 games, you're going to wind up with the third or fourth pick in the draft. You're the Nets. You get the number one pick. You hand it over to Boston, who then turns and gets more value out of it by trading it to Philadelphia. So Ujiri, it doesn't have to be Ujiri for me. But it has to be a guy that, A, is completely competent, and B, you leave him alone. And I think B might be bigger than anything. Whoever it is, just leave him alone. The same mentality you had with Phil Jackson, have with this guy. You want the team? It's your club. You run it. I'm going to pay you a lot of money. I expect dividends. But then you look at what they are right now, and there's such a mishmash of disaster. You've got old guys. You've got old, broken down guys, and you've got guys who are 18 years old who you expect to watch them play. You've got Noah. You've got Melo. Then you've got like the Courtney Lees of the world. And then you've got the youth of Porzingis and Hernan Gomez and young guys, right? Neely Keenan now. It's just, there's no rhyme or reason. And I get it, Philadelphia, they were bad forever, and it's easy to rebuild like that, but at least there was a plan. That's what I need to see moving forward from the Knicks now. A plan, a guy and a plan. 866-ESPN. And the one thing you'll say about Dolan, and I know people say a lot of negative things about him, is he will spend money to make this team good. Now, it hasn't happened, but you're a Mets fan, the Wilpons, they nickel and dime everything. Dolan will spend good after bad money to make this thing relevant and good. So what you've got to do is spend the money, hire the right guy, stay out of his way. That's what you've got to do. And let that GM make the decisions of who he wants. And then that GM hires his coach, and then he stays out of his way. You know, I don't want a Phil Jackson GM to smother a head coach. You got to do this, and you got to do that, and you run the triangle. No, I trust you, and you run this team. That's how it has to work. Cortland in Queens. You're on ESPN Radio, Cortland.
What's up, man? Long time, fan, big fan of the Knicks. I'm happy, but I'm still frustrated. You get the guy Phil Jackson. He's a GM. He's never performed that job before. Why did it take this long to get rid of Phil? I mean, you saw the game evolving. The game sped up. The big man almost doesn't exist. What is it, 80 and 166 under Phil? Like, I don't understand.
80 and 166 is correct under Phil Jackson.
It's unbelievable, man. And then what did he do? He gave him a parting gift by allowing him to draft his last guy before you X him out. You just gave him an extension, and then you let him draft a potential corner piece. You're talking about lottery. I don't care if they weren't 1, 2, 3, or 4. He still was the 8th pick. You still allowed Phil Jackson under his regime of terror.
Whatever pick, Cortland, you bring up a great point. Whatever pick it was, 4, 8, 12, 17, whatever it was, why would you allow a guy that's not going to be here to make the decisions for your team? You know what it tells me? They had no idea that he wasn't going to be here until very, very recently.
Unbelievable.
Welcome to the Knicks. Welcome to the Knicks, Cortland. Thanks for the phone call. I mean, look, guys, this is why I say I'm not falling for it anymore. I'm not buying into it anymore. Get good, wake me up then, and I'll watch. But I'm not playing this game where they bring someone in and I watch them play for 4 games and they start at 14 and 10. I'm not doing it anymore. I need to see results. I need to see them win some games before I'm going to jump back on full force into this Knicks bandwagon. 866-ESPN. Tony in L.A. wants to talk about these Knicks. What's up, Tony?
Yes, sir. I'm a Laker fan, but I kind of feel for the Knicks. How about the Knicks picking up Mitch Kupchak? I'll take your answer off the air. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd be fine with that. I mean, Kupchak is a very skilled, knowledgeable NBA guy. He's been around forever. He's built teams. I'm not opposed to it. I don't have my sights set on one guy. I had said Ujiri before. It doesn't have to be him. I'm fine with a number of guys. But I just need it to be a guy that you're like, okay, all right. It's not a Scott Layden. It's not an Isaiah Thomas. And, that worries me as well. Isaiah Thomas is lurking in this building now, and you know how much that the owner likes Isaiah Thomas. I don't want Isaiah Thomas involved. See, but whatever happens, nothing's going to surprise you. Like, certain organizations are soap opera-esque, and that's just the way they operate. And that's the way the Knicks operate. So, I I'm not going to get crazy about it. I wouldn't be surprised if we wake up tomorrow and they say, Isaiah Thomas is back in charge of running this team. Nothing will surprise me. They can't do anything that will surprise me. Trading away a first-round pick, I can criticize it. It can anger me. I'm not exaggerating. Nothing that they do will surprise me. Nick in Long Island. You're on ESPN Radio, Nick.
How's it going, Dave?
Good. What's on your mind?
If it's either the Toronto guy or any other GM, I don't see how anybody would even want to go to New York right now. Like you said, there's no plan. They're horrible with draft picks. They have no one really to trade. Like, what are you going to do with the Noah contract? I just don't see how the Knicks can get better in the future, and who would even want to go into that mess?
They can. They can't. Look,
like,
I'm not saying it's an easy fix, but they have a young player who is very, very good. You're hoping you have another young player that you just drafted that turns out to be good. You're going to have some money moving forward. You're trying to deal Carmelo Anthony. It's not that it's unfixable. I just don't know that they have the wherewithal to put the right guys in place to fix this thing.
Right, yeah. I was going to say, like, they're not like a team, like Philly or Minnesota or Milwaukee, where, like, they have at least, like, the light at the end of the tunnel. But like you said, they need the
right
right
at the
guy.
end of the tunnel. Philadelphia, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Philly was a playoff team. Minnesota's a team that is legitimate. And I mean, these clubs are head and shoulders above what the Knicks are right now, thanks to the phone call. The Knicks are at the bottom of the barrel. Zach Lowe had that article recently where he said he has spoken with players and agents who look at the Knicks and say, this is the last resort. I mean, look at the free agents they've signed. We thought it was going to be LeBron and Durant and big-time free agents, and look who it is. Robin Lopez, who was a nice player, but not what you need to win a championship. Courtney Lee, trades for Joakim Noah. Khalid, Long Island. You're on ESPN Radio, Khalid.
Hey, thanks. Appreciate it. I'm a Chicago Bulls fan, but I wanted to talk about the Knicks as far as the firing of Phil Jackson. I think that it was a good move, and I think a lot of people kind of place the blame on Dolan, but I truly think that Dolan moved out of Phil Jackson's way, and Phil Jackson kept making mistake after mistake. And for him to hire a rookie coach in Derek Fisher and then get somebody who doesn't run a triangle offense in Jeff Hornacek, big mistake. And why didn't they try to go for Mark Jackson? He had already proved that he could take a team.
I'll tell you why I think, Khalid. I'll tell you why I think.
Go ahead.
I think, and I don't know, but I think because why would a legitimate coach who has options all over the place want to come here and coach for a guy that's going to meddle in your everyday business? Derek Fisher never been a coach. Derek Fisher wanted to be a coach. He got an opportunity, right? Jeff Hornacek, I think he did a nice job with Phoenix, especially year one. Jeff Hornacek didn't have teams knocking down his door. Do you think if you call up Jeff Van Gundy or Doc Rivers or one of these coaches that you look at, you say, that's a good coach, that he would want to come here and work under Phil Jackson?
No, and that's my point. Those guys might not want to, but a guy who just got fired from helping build a team that's won the championship 2 times out of 3 years, and Mark Jackson, and also being a native New Yorker, and, basically a motivator, I think Mark Jackson probably would have took some, he probably would have took some direction for the field, but I definitely think that he would have at least, gave it his all and tried to either run the triangle, some form of the triangle.
I don't think he wanted any part of it, Khalid, and thanks for the phone call. I don't think he wanted any part of it. Now, I think he would. But at that point, You've got to put the GM in place. You've got to get out of his way. You've got to let him hire his own guys, and you've got to wait. And that's where the Knicks are right now. Now, Dolan has shown, whatever your thought is on Dolan, that he is capable of turning it off and letting someone else run this franchise. And that's what he's got to do. Hire someone, put him in place, get out of the way, let them run the club.
You're listening to the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
For Stefan Bondi, New York Daily News, Ntilikina appeared to be walking gingerly and had his knee taped up after his first Knicks practice session. So, again, we're not saying it's something severe, but it's typical, isn't it? Goes out, first session, hurts knee, taped up, walking gingerly. This stuff, it would almost be surprising if this stuff didn't happen, wouldn't it? Like, if they weren't such a disaster. If Phil Jackson wasn't removed of his job, or they didn't have an agreement that they would part ways. If they didn't trade picks, if they didn't have a deal with Melo, like, it's so Knicks. And it's been going on for so long that every time they pull one of these moves, you just, rather than be surprised, oh, yeah, well, that's the Knicks. They have to. I mean, the number one thing that must get done, and soon, is that GM. Now, I know they might go with Steve Mills for a while. But I don't know that Porzingis loves him. Looks at a kind of an extension of the old GM. And I guess he's well respected around NBA circles, but I don't think he gives a lot of people a ton of confidence that Steve Mills is going to be the GM. I mean, he was, in essence, an extension of Phil Jackson. For me, I wouldn't want that. Now, I don't know what Dolan's master plan is. I don't know if he has a master plan. But I'd like to start with a guy and give a guy that you look at and you say, at least he has some points here. At least he comes here and you know that he's respected and well liked and well revered around the league. So I'm going to at least back off my criticism. I'll sit and wait and see what he's capable of doing. That's what I'd like as a GM. I don't know what they're going to do. I wouldn't be surprised if it's Mills and Hornacek. I wouldn't be surprised if it's neither. I wouldn't be surprised if Melo's here. I wouldn't be surprised if Melo's not here. Like, that's where we are. We can sit here, we can speculate until we're blue in the face. Guys, we have no idea what they're planning to do. None. Sam in Uniondale is on ESPN Radio. What's up, Sam?
Dave, it's a great day, Dave. It's a great day. And you know what? My problem with Phil was the biggest hypocrite, right? Because how do you want total autonomy, but then you want puppets as coaches? I mean, why won't you let the coaches do what they need to do? And I think the best thing that happened to the Knicks today is the ego is out the door. And I think I wouldn't be so quick to say Steve Mills and Jeff Hornacek are out the door, because these guys,
Sam, I didn't say that. I have no idea what the plan is with these guys.
No, I know you didn't say it, but it seems to be a sentiment that these guys may be out the door. I think Steve Mills may be able to hold his own, and maybe Hornacek now will be able to lead this team his own way as a coach. Now, let's not forget, at a certain point last year, the Knicks early on looked like they were heading in the right direction. So the best thing to happen is that ego is out the door, and let's see what happens.
Let's see what happens. I think the best news is that he's out the door, Sam, and thanks for the call. But I think that's the first step of multiple steps that you have to take. I can't think that you can just move on from Phil Jackson and move to Steve Mills and all of a sudden it's a beautiful Nirvana picture. I need moves to be made here. What am I going to do with Carmelo Anthony? I mean, can we finalize this? What's happening with Carmelo Anthony? They're moving on from him. They're going to keep him. They're going to build around him. They're going to bring him off the bench. Like, what are you doing with Carmelo Anthony? That's the elephant in the room. And you know what, guys? We have no idea. And apparently, before Phil was let go, there was a very differing view of what you were going to do with Carmelo Anthony, who's owed $50 million over the next 2 years. Sounds like Phil wanted to buy him out, and the Knicks are like, we're not buying him out. He's going to wind up in Houston. He's not going to win. Nobody's going to win. Only team that can win is Golden State. So all this is just, we're all like pawns in the world of Steve Kerr and that Golden State Warriors club, right? Mustafa wants to talk next. Mustafa, you're on ESPN Radio.
Yes, sir. So thanks for taking my call. Looking for a good replacement for him. David Griffin wouldn't be a good replacement because even though he made good moves, we don't know the reasoning why he was fired. So and I'm a big Raptors fan, okay? And I've been following Masai Ujiri. I know him more than most, and he has a great track record. He transformed the Denver Nuggets to a 50-win team, and when he came to Toronto, they were really bad. And in a few years, he got them to a top 4 team, respectable team in the East. Anytime he puts his hand on something, he makes decent moves. He gave you guys Andrea Bargnani for that awful trade the Knicks accepted.
But the only move he made, it feels like that you're like, oh my God, what a steal, was fleecing the Knicks.
No, but he also
didn't draft Lowry, right? He didn't draft DeRozan. Those are not his guys.
Yeah, but at least he made a culture, and he brought in Ibaka at the trade deadline. He knows what he's doing. At least he has a plan and a direction where the team wants to go.
Mustafa, you give me Ujiri, I'm thrilled. I am thrilled. Give me Ujiri, step out of the way, let him run this team. I would do it right now. But he just signed a brand new deal. I'm not even opposed to trading to bring him in. I think that's how important I really believe this position is.
Yeah, and Mark Jackson I think would be good, but he doesn't have any experience. And we've had people with no experience do this job before, but there's always a question mark about them. At least with someone like Ujiri, you know what he's capable of. So the Knicks are in a tough situation. But you're right, the Warriors are going to win the championship. So what's the point of talking about all this?
Because we love it. Because we love it, and we love conjecture, and we love to analyze it. Jeff Hornacek issued a statement after Summer Practice League, and thanks for the call, on the firing of Phil Jackson. Did not answer questions on the topic, and here was the statement. It's always an interesting time when stuff like that happens. I just want to thank Phil for giving me the opportunity here in New York. I worked with Steve all year long. We had a great working relationship and talking about things. We'll continue to do that. I wish Phil the best from this point on. It's a tough day for us, but our focus is to get this team better, continue to build our young players, and figure out a way to win. We have a lot of time before the regular season to figure that out. A lot of time before the regular season. You got a lot of decisions to make, buddy. What are you going to do with Carmelo Anthony? Do you have a point guard? Are you going to bring back Derrick Rose? I've been shouting for weeks I'd love Rubio, but what is it going to take to bring him in? We've got plenty of time. You have plenty of time. There's a lot of decisions to be made with this team. Golden State has plenty of time. They're fine. Cleveland has plenty of time because they know that they've already won the Eastern Conference this coming year. Knicks don't have plenty of time. Now, I'm not saying you want to rush it and come to some kind of a crazy decision tomorrow, but I wouldn't sit here and say, oh, yeah, take your time. I want to know what are you doing with Melo? I'd like to know that soon, whether you're going to keep him or move on from Carmelo Anthony. This is not a plenty of time.
Guess what?
You're in the middle of the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
Damn it, I mean it!
Here's great. You can tweet me at Rothenberg ESPN. Spaced Out Music, who clearly is living up to that name, Spaced Out. You're a moron, he says to me. Stop asking about Melo. He's obviously staying. I think it's like 50-50 proposition right now. But wait, I didn't get to the good part of what he tweets to me. You're so negative about the Knicks. Just get off the air. How could you be anything but negative about the Knicks? I think you'd be an absolute moron if you came on and you spewed optimism about the Knicks. I'm an idiot because I'm negative? What do you want me to do? Boy, what a great run that was with Phil. What a shame it is to see him go. How could you have any optimism? The only optimism you can have about this club right now is that you really like Porzingis and they've moved on from a guy that he was totally turned off by. What else is there? Yeah, you like Hernan Gomez. We'll see what Neely Kina is. But they shouldn't have fired or moved on or whatever the phraseology is. You don't do that after the draft. You do that before the draft. Why was the conversation not broached about what's our plan with Melo? I'd like to buy him out. What do you want to do there? No. Buying him out's not an option. A month ago, 2 months ago, Phil sat up there and spoke over and over. We want Melo to move on. We think it'd be better for him elsewhere. We wish him luck, but we don't see him with the Knicks. Why wasn't the conversation had at that point? You know what, Phil, what's our plan here with Carmelo Anthony? If we can't trade him, what are we going to do? Why did that not happen? Why did that happen now? Why did that happen after the draft? Why am I letting Phil Jackson decide who I'm taking? And look, Neely Kina can be elite. I don't know what he's going to be. That's not the point. The point is, why am I allowing Phil Jackson to draft the guy and then moving on from him or firing him or whatever you want to say 6 days later? That's your question. Monk, Dennis Smith, These are guys that would have excited Knicks fans more. And look, Porzingis was taken, and he was terrific, and he's been exceptional. So I'm not saying you can't take a foreign kid or a European kid and succeed. But why am I drafting someone with Phil Jackson, who he wants, who he says, oh, this guy fits into the triangle, and 6 days later, Phil Jackson is no more? You have to ask that question, don't you? 866-ESPN. Chris in Rochester. Chris, you're on ESPN Radio.
Dave, thanks for taking my call.
Sure, Chris.
Hey, I was wondering, I mean, I've been listening to it all day. I think David Griffin would be a realistic person for Dolan to look into, just for the simple fact is that LeBron's going to be a free agent, and if they have even any opportunity of LeBron walking through those doors to even entertain an interview by the Knicks, you don't see that?
No. I played that game in 2011. No. There is no chance that LeBron James is walking through that door. None. I don't think he's going to finish his career with Cleveland, but come to the Knicks, he would. No. I can't. For the life of me, I can't. Lakers, sure. Do I think that Jerry West could rebuild that team and bring LeBron and convince him to play with the Clippers? Yes. No way. No chance is he coming to the Knicks. None.
Stayed around another year that they would try to get LeBron over there with Porzingis and Carmelo and try to start something. But you're definitely right. I mean, as long as Dolan's the owner, I just see it's a cancer to the overall team.
Look, they've had an awful run. And thanks for the call, Chris. They've had an awful run. One playoff series victory in 17 years. And then, of course, Roy Hibbert becomes relevant and makes the block of the ages. And I mean, do you even know where Roy Hibbert is now? I think he might be on Charlotte, but I'm not 100% convinced of that. Like, Roy Hibbert is now irrelevant. But at that moment, he was all-world defensively, wasn't he? You don't know. You have no idea. My producer, I can see John on the other side of the glass. He has no idea. He's actually looking up where Roy, because we don't know. But in that series, Roy Hibbert was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in that one moment. 866-ESPN, right? Dave in Jersey, you're on ESPN Radio. What's up, Dave?
I'm calling because Phil Jackson knew what he saw in that Knicks team. So give him a break. The Knicks ain't win since 1973, Earl and Clyde. They haven't won. Give James Dolan a break, too. They haven't won. Give Phil a break. He knew what he saw.
Dave, what are you even talking about? Who knew what who saw where?
Phil Jackson can see the game. That's why he won championships with the Bulls and the Lakers.
How many did he have? I mean, really, you know what? You're embarrassing yourself, Dave. You are you're embarrassing yourself. He saw it. Did you love the job he did here with the Knicks?
He know what he saw. That team
Joakim Noah is a great signing, wasn't it?
That team is Noah played when he was in the league, so don't try to use his name. Don't disrespect him. He played at Florida too.
What are you talking about?
Florida when they won 2 championships with the guy that's on Boston now. Don't disrespect Joakim Noah.
So who can I criticize that you're comfortable with?
You should be criticizing yourself. You should be talking about Westbrook, the MVP of the NBA, or talking about something that's relevant.
The Knicks are. I mean, you are. I mean, really, you. I don't know if you go to the Mensa meeting right after this call or how this works. But Dave, thanks very much for the call. That's terrific. Boy, oh boy. You can't blame Phil Jackson. You can't blame James Dolan. You can't blame Joakim Noah because, guys, at one point, Joakim Noah was relevant and good. So how dare you blame him? Okay. Kelvin in New York. Let's see what gems you got, Kelvin. You're on ESPN Radio.
Hey, how's it going? First-time caller. I just want to thank you for taking my call. Woke up very happy today. Phil Jackson's officially out of here. I think, personally, they need consistency. So, again, Phil Jackson's gone, but I think the team they have now, they can definitely use that as a starting point and just kind of build from there. Carmelo Anthony, is he past his prime? Some say yes.
Oh, he's past his prime.
But I still think he has enough in the tank to be the second or third best player on the team if they get the right pieces.
But who's the second best player on the team?
Well, right now, Porzingis, could eventually become the best player on that team. But right now, he's still the second best player on the team. And I think you move in Carmelo puts too much pressure on Porzingis too soon, especially with a market like New York City.
You know what the truth is? It's time. I don't know if they're going to be able to, Kelvin, and thanks for the call. It is time to move on from Carmelo Anthony. The whole thing, it's been going on forever. He should have never been re-signed here, and I don't know what to believe, and if it was Dolan or if it was Phil or if it was a combination or whatever. You signed the guy that shouldn't have been re-signed, and you signed a guy that shouldn't have been re-signed to a no-trade clause in his contract? Oh, you've got to be kidding me. How do you go ahead and how do you do that? And now we're talking about you. I mean, you might be stuck with them now. And I don't think, and I don't blame Dolan. He doesn't want to eat $50 million of this contract. I mean, you talk about, having egg on your face. You buy him out, and then he goes to Houston, wherever he wants, or Cleveland, and is the third or fourth best player on the team and has a chance to win a championship. Look, I think that Carmelo has had a nice NBA career, but he's done himself no favors here in New York, guys. Sit here and tell me he's an elite player. They were 14-10 last year. And don't tell me there was no talent on this team at all. I don't like Derrick Rose, but he's a serviceable point guard. Porzingis, Noah. Now, Noah's contract is an albatross, but he was decent when he was playing. Hernan Gomez, Courtney Lee. They had Aaron Aflalo prior to that. Melo has to take some of the blame. They've put themselves in a horrendous situation. Can they get out of it? Maybe. But this is not all Phil Jackson. There are others to blame here. And I think at some point, players have to be responsible for subpar success. I guess that's not even a proper phrase. For subpar results. And that's what the Knicks have had here. So you can blame Phil Jackson. I think he's deserving of a ton of it. But Carmelo Anthony does not come off scot-free here. You're the best player on a team. You can't get this is not a laughingstock team. You couldn't find a way to have this team compete for a playoff spot? Compete? Come on. Chris in Brooklyn, you're on ESPN Radio.
Hey, how you doing, Dave?
Good. What's up, Chris?
Couple quick points if you'll allow me. One, I woke up happy that he was gone, but I'm far from happy as a Knicks fan, as you've been saying many times this morning. I mean, they won 44 years ago. Our glory days for more than half of Knicks fans, I'm 33. They didn't even win a championship. It was the 90s when we were second or third best. That's our glory days.
You know, it's so funny. Well, those aren't the glory days. The glory days are 70 and 73. But the funny thing about the 90s is when the 90s were going on, all we did was destroy those teams. Now you look at those teams, and you'd give anything to have that relevance again, wouldn't you?
Anything. I'm a diehard Knicks and Giants fan, very similar to you. I'd give anything to have that. I mean, I was the 10-year-old kid with a Knicks jersey and shorts on holding a basketball watching the game. That was me. And I could still be that today if they were good, but they're not.
They're not.
The next point would be about Carmelo. He has to shoulder some of the blame, and he's not an elite player. I like him, but he's not elite. You got to compliment him, and he definitely is part of the blame, but you have to compliment him because he doesn't play defense, and he doesn't hustle the whole game.
No.
Great
I mean, look,
threat.
Carmelo Anthony, Chris, and thanks for the call. I appreciate it. Carmelo Anthony is a scorer. And the rest of his game leaves a lot to be desired, and I think that he shoulders a good portion of blame for what's happened here with the Knicks. All of it? God, no. The 17-win season? Certainly not. But they have not. I mean, they've won. If I would have told you when they traded for Melo that they would have one playoff series victory, would you have signed for that, or you would say, you know what, I don't think that's exactly what I'm looking for? You know the answer.
Okay, Kevin, for the grand prize of $1 million. What color is the White House?
I know this.
5 seconds.
Oh, switching to Geico could save you a bunch of money on car insurance?
Okay. Judges? That's true, Kevin. They'll allow it. Congratulations. You're a winner.
Woo! Geico, because saving 15% or more on car insurance is always a great answer.
Guess what?
You're in the middle of the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
Damn it, I mean it!
The PR announcement from the Knicks and Phil Jackson. Here's Phil's angle. Knicks will always hold a special place in my heart. This team and this town launched my NBA career. I'll forever be indebted to them. I'm grateful to Mr. Dolan for giving me the opportunity to return here. I had hoped, of course, to bring another NBA championship to the Garden. As someone who treasures winning, I'm deeply disappointed that we weren't able to do that. New York fans deserve nothing less. I wish them and the Knicks organization all the best today and always. You know, it's funny. You read it, he says, I thought we were going to bring another championship here. They didn't make the playoffs when he was here. They were awful in the time that he was here. He thought they were going to be a playoff team. They went out and rattled off a 17-win season in his tenure here. Then this year, we thought, they're 14-10, and look out. You remember that Christmas Day? That was what a big game. It's the Knicks, it's the Celtics. Look at how the Knicks season went, and look at how the Celtics season went after that. Celtics found this all-star, fourth quarter electric magical guard. They cruise to a great regular season. They get the 1 seed. They have an epic playoff win against Washington. They they were outmanned and out everything by Cleveland, and they go to the Eastern Conference Finals, and then they have the number 1 pick in the draft. The Knicks were 14-10. Their best player, and you could choose whoever you want, Carmelo Anthony, he's not happy with the organization. They're not happy with him. Their second best player, Kristaps Porzingis, they're not happy with him. He won't even return phone calls. Derrick Rose, he goes missing. Missing! I mean, things you've never heard of. That's the thing. Everything that you say, you're like, boy, I never heard of that, point here. If there's something you're not sure, boy, I've never heard of this happening with a team. If it's going to, this is where it will happen. We are the New York Knicks. James in Jersey, you're on ESPN Radio.
I want to know what you thought of a GM opening. Maybe the Knicks going to look for someone from the Miami organization.
I mean, who do you, what, Pat Riley you want to bring back?
No, not Riley, but someone under him in Miami, maybe. Maybe Spoelstra, if you could try to get him.
Spoelstra? Why would he leave Miami?
So just go for an understudy of Riley.
But Spoelstra is a terrific head coach. He's won a championship. They have a team that, look at what they did the second half of the season. You think there's more upside with the Knicks than Miami?
I mean, maybe go for someone under Riley, like an assistant GM there.
But why are you look? I don't even know who the assistant GM is, so I'd be lying to you if I had any imagination of who that is. But look, maybe they would leave for the Knicks GM spot, but I don't know if that's a relevant position for someone. I don't even know who the assistant GM is. I mean, you're grasping at straws right now. Pat Riley runs that team. He's not coming. Spoelstra's second in charge. He's not coming. Thanks for the call, James. I got to run. Jay in California. You're on ESPN Radio, Jay.
Dave, I want to ask you a question because I heard a couple of callers before me and they were called morons. So I'm going to ask a question instead of making a statement. What can any GM do in the state and city of New York if every single last draft there's boos? You have more commentators and more I don't know what you call them, but
Jay, I'll tell you exactly what you could do. Go win. Put together a team that people look at and they say, "Oh, that's not a terrible team," and then you go out and you win. As difficult as New York is to win in, Jay, if you can win here, there's no place like it.
But would you say that the Knicks of old were maybe the Memphis Grizzlies today or the Toronto Raptors today? Because of course they're not the Spurs. They're not the Warriors. They're not the Lakers.
What Knicks of old? The 90s Knicks we're talking about?
The 90s Knicks that you said.
They were better. They were better than those teams. Today. They were better than the Grizzlies. They were a good team. I mean, I don't think you can compare as a different game, but those were really good teams who had to try and get past a great team, and they were never capable of doing that.
So if you look at Linsanity, and I know that it is horrible for me to bring up, but if you look at Linsanity and what he was able to do, he did that while Carmelo was injured. So if you look at the fact that Porzingis was booed and then he became a unicorn, I think that Phil Jackson it was the best person for the job because it was like, hey, yes, the players.
How could you say that, Jay? How could you look at what they are and what they became and how bad they were and say that Phil Jackson was the best person for the job?
Because he wanted Steve Kerr. Steve Kerr got the Golden State Warriors job. Then he had to scramble to find another coach that would be able to coach.
Do you think Steve Kerr would be the Steve Kerr that we now know and adore if he came to the Knicks? Steve Kerr would have been the same as Derek Fisher, as Jeff Hornacek. He would have been irrelevant, and he would have been run out of town.
because this is why I want to say this before you let me go. One of the things that I want to bring up, and I know this might.
You got to hurry up. You got 3 seconds.
You got the.
I don't have time.
Warriors.
You're stumbling all over things. I don't have time for it. Good stuff. We'll see what the Knicks do in the next 24 hours. I'll be back tomorrow. Rothenberg in for Stephen A., ESPN Radio, and, of course, the ESPN app.
That's just a sample of what you'll hear on the Stephen A. Smith Show. Weekdays at 1 p.m. Eastern on Sirius XM Channel 80 and the ESPN app.